Kim BK, Abu Beka from Kasese, thanks for tuning in. Leo from Zana, Kampala. So tubere baguminkiriza nga mumanyi flight eve Uganda okujja eno eba mpanvu nnyo, so omukulembeze akyawumuddemu katono naye nga ate saawa yonna agenda kuba nga twegattako. Jimmy Kasokoso in Chireka, thanks for tuning in. One day Samuel, maybe from Mbale. Yes, we were kuberako. So baganda bange mwe namba tumiddeko yina gye muli. Ken from Kampala, following everything right from the airport. Thanks, Kenny. Yes, Wandega from Mbale, thanks so much. Live from Machindye. Many Omumbere, live from Mayuge. Shafiq, live from Mbale. I think it is Mbarara. William live from Kanyanya, then Kato from Kayunga, Zambia Kwemuli, Great Worker Brothers in Toronto. Yes, we have Fred from Blambuli, then we have Lubowa from Katwe Mengo. Thanks for tuning in live. Michombero from Kabale. Richard from Machindye, Vian in Cape Town. Shafiq from Mbarara, and very many other people. I would live from Mayuge. Yeah, I'm still waiting for the president. Just be patient. Just be patient. Just be patient. He's going to be joining us anytime.
We shall go calm down. We shall go calm down.
Wesugwatone from Kayunga. Greetings.
Muri profession, I understand that. Naye, olusi, umetukungana uwengi wetu, tuwasana ntuna mwatu kulembela. Muli badembe right now, kumanyana ya soko kuweza chibuza ni adadaka na dako. Netutakola ngeri yako ya disorganized. Siba chibagambe kibayisa amaso. Tubade kusawa natagala naba chukati mulenda. Wetumala chukati mulenda. Mkwendeze chumwechi. Naye mese bade okujira iko. Excitement tujirina. Niye basaba segala ya tuorganize. Kino muhimu kikoze emyaka n'emyaka. Naye okubeera organized a little bit. Ekina sta. Musobola okumanya tugenda kubuuza ebintu emeka bani abagenda okumuuza ngo mukimanyi omwogezi wa NUP waali wano mukimanyi omwogezi wa Canada waali n'abakulembeze ba Canada. So kati kyekiri mu stand right now okuorganize nga nemmanya ani abuuza ani addako ani addako ani addako ani addako waba muyinza okuba olina ebibuuzo naye nga kujja kwagala bulungi buli kaseera webajja okuvaawo nga anyiiza ne bamuuza tebamuuze mu kibuuzo nekimu. So nze ndowooza mu budde buno tubeera wano nga tuwooza nti tulina tukola tukowe twagala kugenda twandyorganize ne tukola eki.
I think I'll lead a team of people who need work.
My main aim is not to focus on
just so that but let's switch then later
So this is a questionnaire paper. If you have a question, just put it in. If you don't have a question now, you will not have it.
Now I got to yes, Manisolo, thanks so much. I'm subscribing. Tumwerabira okona kade ka notification.
Yes, sir. Experience. So I would suggest I got my jacket number this is an conference. Now, because
Greetings, Griffin Ivan Kabonzi, greetings. Somebody saying, organize yourself, you're shouting. User on one number. I'm advising for
Okay, if you have a number, you ask me that number. If number one asks, then number two goes. Okay. So we'll come with us. We'll follow up.
Now, raise a category. I'm only the one for a baby. Whatever I know, you're the other way.
Wajira choose a position.
Picture style, landscape. Picture style, you choose landscapes. Flat. I take one desire saturation, I just say. What you could display, but not to say that then to Jacob. So, Kati.
Line extension you want? Then we see line extension.
Line extension you
Same.
What's the first stop? okwagala okutali kukule yalabbi namusoke sauda so mubeere nga mwekomerako bannange omukulembeze akyawumuddemu katono nnyo naye ng'essaawa yonna agenda kuba twegattako. Kasawo Mukono Manisul onyumidde mu karedi wabula Griffin Ivan. Mwamuzi mukozi kwate mwezi kubanga yeah. Watching live from Dubai. TikTok, aha. Anataka kwa TikTok omunywanyi. Bayinza okujja neno mbaddeko na 5 baddeko 5 balaba ku airport.
yakasota kange katekagwa nzokawambira nekakwatiriere kalimu obuntu muno obulala nga 8 wabo n'obula oyongera kusikanga keyongera kali buli muri buli obusanga
kulembeza asobola okwogerera essaawa era tugenda beera
conference etandika ssaawa mekenja
tumulinze Saudi teri kwebaka tumulinze Lawrence bwe bali kubaako Lawrence ni Saudi naye tagenda kwebaka paka nga president azze ani asobola ani asosola mu mawanga Manisulu kikyogambye ekyo omuliro gwentandika okuza kumala
tekako kasipiika omuliro gwofunyeko guma ate olusolo gye wakoze wajjanga mu bino nga kundira omuliro gwesi kubanga lulina kano ngaaulakebeka eyaffe ekyajenga namba kati ngevenija kweziri mitaali 5 luba waliwo lu masanyalaze nijjawa
so baganda bange mwekumireko Ezekide Power bank kyo. Wajiwadde oli omulenzi.
bamuyitani kano kagusa speed emusuuleko kugamba
Murshidi.
kano kakusuuleko speed toina
Oli Android.
nange
Okyakwata Samusanga.
siina batumala sokotere wali sokotere wetugenda tandikira nja
Ate mwakoze.
ndakola neteki nensaaga naye fone mukusitegeraku kati
nteera awo wansi
bungo bwabawe
agenda yingira kyakuba maze kubanga ndaba wano tiwali kaca oyo app gyenkozesa na 8k esitula 8k 4k nausiwa eno si iPhone simanyi obazaamati amatitizani you can 8k to 4k ate ekola live stream
channel
both of the stakeholders. That is to say, the suspect himself and also the offender. I think that necessitate that they are right. We think they have to just we think they have so much simply because it but also that there is a line of innocence. If they have a bad to come and to us what the criminal is the suspect right? We think that is very bad to have an engagement in the right of trials simply because they are already punished, right? And the first place is that they are human rights, right? Because they have a right to fair judgment, right? We think it is very bad to have the right to public trials simply because there is no justice for the suspect, right? We think on that note then we oppose the right of public trials. More to that, we think that with the right of public trials, there is influence of decision making by the judge. Why do we think so? We think this because entirely the public that is being involved, they do not specify who exactly will sign this petition and who will be involved in the decision making, right? We think that even when they are not on the panel, they have a right to incentivize and influence the decision of the judge, which is now against the rights of the suspect, right? We think they are still also humans and they deserve things like human rights protection. We think that in their own side of the house there is a lot of iniquity because of such kind of a perspective, right? We think that when the public notices that you are a suspect of something, there is a higher likelihood and a higher incentive for them to actually that you are right? We then think that they do not have a right to come and talk about the terrorist mechanism. Let me show you how terrorist mechanism is being achieved in front of the house. Hey, that is the system for a very short period that public trials already exist. We have a very big problem with the right of public trials. Simply because I now draw to the point of the terrorists, right? I think they do not have that right of coming over to talk about the terrorists because we already see that them being subjected to public trials, not the right, is already starring criminality in the country. We don't think there is no necessity for having the right in public trials. We feel keeping the status quo as this is much more important because the stakeholders are being protected, that is in terms of their human rights, that is to say the suspect and the offender, right? We think justice is the major aim of today's debate for both the offender and the suspect, which we achieve in the outside of the house when we have simply trials, not necessarily the rise of these public trials. We then think that on that perspective, we stand to win today's debate because also things like social media come with false information and delay in judgment.
Thank you so much for that fine speech. We can have the first segment of this examination.
Come again? It's before the public. I think you've heard in my respective speech. Come again? I've already told you that the public incentivizes the judgment. Therefore, there is a higher likelihood of changing the verdict. You will notify us about that in your speeches. We think a lot of rise in public trials is not the option to go with. We don't think public trials rise is an option to go with.
Alright, we can have the opening speech from team opposition. Ready by
Okay, so before the next speaker starts, the public speakers move to the room. Let's all move to our room. We are starting the round as soon as I arrive in that room, as soon as Charlie, Judge, 70B, arrives in her room also. We shall start the round. So let's be there.
I'll begin my speech in 3 down, resolved. This also causes the rise of public trials. Public trials, in the case of the team proposition, brings here a case that maybe they see that the rise of public trials is the problem at hand, which we see that maybe they are trying to confuse the whole congregation. How do they say the rise of public trials is a problem? They say rise of public trials is maybe a lot of growth and influence in the public trials. They say the public trials have been present, but currently it is being risen. And what do they bring at the table? They bring problems like suspects' names are tarnished, innocence of the criminal is not known to the public, there is unfair judgment, there is no justice for the suspect. They say that maybe there is influence of decision making, they say there is iniquity, there is no deterrence in our case, and they also ask us if we can tell them about Act 28. Act 28, it is a constitutional right. It is a constitutional right that allows all citizens to be involved in a session of a court, and that is Act 28. Therefore, we see that in a public trial, there is that Act 28 that is being catered for. What is, if they can say that we don't want the rise of public trials, what's the option? They are not giving us the option. As the vice speaker asked them in the cross-examination, they are talking about social media and delay in judgment. Social media and delay in judgment. How do you see this? They say social media is going to tarnish the judgment. Maybe social media is going to influence the decision making. But we see the judgment is always made over the constitution of Uganda. If the judgment is made over the constitution of Uganda, how do you tell me that the judgment is going to influence the judgment? How do you tell me that this social media is going to influence the judgment and bring about injustice? We don't see this. In this case, they talk of maybe a suspect's name is tarnished. How do they say that the suspect's name is tarnished? They say the suspect is going to be known as someone who is a criminal. They say in public they are going to see someone who is suspected being a criminal. And after that, they don't tell us. They say that maybe someone, when someone is found innocent after being a suspect, the public won't be innocent. But already, it is a public trial. A public trial is where you find people are judged, and after being judged, they are sentenced to what they should do if they are found guilty. And if they are innocent, they are set free also in public. Therefore, the public is also rest assured that someone is innocent or guilty. Therefore, there is nothing like tarnishing the name of the suspect after being found innocent, because the innocent is also publicly. What do they say? They say there is no justice for the suspect. How do you tell me there is no justice for the suspect in this? A public trial, people are witnesses, people have evidenced everything, people are watching that maybe this one is in wrong, this one is not in wrong. How do you tell me someone is not going to have justice, yet people are there to witness everything? They talk of iniquity. They say that offenders and suspects should, the offended and the suspect should be the ones in between. But remember, there are those people who have eyewitness. They are also the public. They should come to the table and be in the case. And that's the public trial. What is the rise today? The rise today, we talk of the Okello Onyum Christopher court session, which was made public, and maybe the trial is also made public. They bring about, should the Ugandan rugby player case of the suspect be brought to a public trial? It is a public demand that should be brought to a public trial. Why do we see that public trials? Why do we see the rise of public trials being advantageous in our case? In our case, public trials, first of all, they bring about reduced crime rates. Because people fear shame. They fear to be ashamed in front of others, and therefore they won't get involved in those crimes. Therefore, we shall have a crime-free area. They talk of it, they bring about transparency because, one, it is a public trial. Being reason to a public trial, people will have to see that there is transparency in the judicial system. There is public trust. People will have a public trust in the judiciary, and that's what we want in Uganda. Therefore, we are trying to promote justice and transparency in a criminal-free world in our world, whereby we see in their world there is, first of all, increase in bribery, there is increase in justice. In injustice, which we do not want in our Uganda today, and that's why we bring about the rise of public trials and defend it that it is indeed advantageous because it brings about justice and transparency. As my second speaker will continue to clarify you clearly, better than the team opposition. But team proposition, I ask, what is the status quo? Thank you very much.
All right, let's have the first and second segment of cross-examination.
Innocence or the guiltiness of the person.
Justify the problem solvents you have on your side of the house when you have the rights.
My second speaker will be there for that.
Okay, so even when you claim that you have so-called public rise, right? Does that justify the fact that the suspect's name will still be tarnished?
Pardon?
Even when you claim you have to have a perfect rise, justify the accountability of his name being tarnished?
All right, we can get to the second speeches reading your paper. 3 minutes, right?
Okay, this house opposes the rise of public trials. So what negative side has failed to understand is the rise that is happening in today's world. So they fail to understand that the rise includes social media, things like social so they fail to characterize on that. So that is why they fail. So they talk about the Act 28 of the Constitution, but they fail to understand that this act actually favors public trials, but not the rise of public trials, and that is what they fail to understand at the end of the day. So we then think that when there is no rise, and there is just public trials, we then think that people are involved at the end of the day. So they do not give a clear justification of that. So they talk about transparency, but again on transparency, they talk about people, thousands of people talking about one suspect who they can't even know whether they are innocent or whether they have committed a crime. But they fail to understand that transparency is blinded by things like social media that has risen at the end of the day. So that is what they fail to understand. So they talk about bribery and injustice, but what we show you is that bribery happens on their side of the house where many people are involved in something. So on our side of the house, we show you that a case is being handled between 3 or 4 parties. So what are the people that are involved are the judges, the offender, and the eyewitnesses. So bringing the involvement of other people is not going to at the end of the day. What happens is that the judges are influenced by their decisions are influenced by what the people think, right? So the majority, using social media, this is not what we would want to happen on our side of the house. So the rise is the problem that we would not want to see. So they also talk about judging fairly the innocent. But they fail to understand that even when these people are innocent, they are spread all over social media and they are being talked to. People comment negatively about them. So what happens is that they create a negative thing on the name of this innocent person, and at the end of the day, we think that is violation of human rights. But on our side of the house, we show you that this weekend's decision making, the rise of it. And also number 2, we show you that there's much bureaucracy at the end of the day. So the process being handled by many people that aren't supposed to even to be involved. This creates something like a delay, and at the end of the day, the justice that was supposed to be provided is not provided at the end of the day. So we show you that the stakeholders are favored on our side of the house, where we support something like public trials only without the rise of it. We characterize for you what happens in the rise, things like social media want to see. So they also talk about judging fairly the innocent, but they fail to understand that even when these people are innocent, they are spread all over social media and they are being talked to. People comment negatively about them. So what happens is that they create a negative thing on the name of this innocent person, and at the end of the day, we think that is violation of human rights. But on our side of the house, we show you that this weekend's decision making, the rise of it.
The innocence also posted on social media or not?
So the innocence, even if it was to be posted on social media, we think that people have already tarnished the name of this particular individual.
Thank you. Do you believe that there is no tarnishing of someone's name?
No, the tarnishing of the person's name is there because people comment negatively about this particular person, and at the end of the day, people comment negatively about this very person.
What is this? Let's call it this.
So the status quo is that there is a rise in public trials, which we are actually against. Thank you.
So resolved. In today's debate, we actually see confusion from the team proposition, where they come and speak about innocence. Actually, their case only their case is rotating about innocence. So now, we're supposed to know how this, if they speak about the tarnishment of the name of a suspect's name in public, how do they explain this in today's resolution? So now, they also know that if a person is found innocent or guilty, the case is posted on social media. So now, what do we see in today's resolution? From our case, we explain it clearly that even if the person is found innocent, the person is still posted on the social media saying that the person is actually innocent. So that actually shows justice. So now, first of all, in today's resolution, we have to understand what is the problem. What problem do we see in private? What problem do we see in private trials? First of all, we have bribery and we have injustice, which is not in our case. So now, if the public trials have been made on Okello and you have actually come to realize that the person is actually guilty, what question do they still understand? Do they still want to know about tarnishing the name of a person? If the person is found guilty, the person is actually guilty, and also the public has to know that the person is actually guilty. So now, in today's resolution, what are we promoting in our case? We are promoting justice and transparency and the crime-free world, which is not in their case. So now, when they come to their resolution, they say that isn't the Article 28 from the Constitution option, and actually you have to understand, if it's a right of human beings, then we're not denying their rights. And also, they also say that we have the delay of justice. If people are hearing, if people are there to witness what is actually being happened, if the testimonies and what the person is speaking, actually to know that the justice actually is delivered quickly. And also, what do we see in our case where we have the public trials? We see reduced crime rates because there is fear of shame, and also we see transparency because the people follow up to demand for accountability. And also we have public trust in justice. If the people are able to hear the testimonies of the person being tried in front of the public, they're able to know that actually they have promoted justice, because they know that the person is supposed to speak that I'm innocent or I'm guilty, or they follow up the person to find that a person actually did a specific crime, and actually you find that we are promoting justice in our case. And also, what are we seeing that is the problem? In their debate, they said that they do not want public trust. Then they have not given us what do they want in today's resolution. So we beg them to come and explain what they want to take to us.
Alright, so can we have the last segment of cross-examination?
Speaker, what happens if the suspect is declared innocent?
If the person is declared innocent, then it is legitimate, and the people know that the person.
What happens to the name that has already been tarnished on things like social media?
The name will not be tarnished because the person is.
Thank you. Do you concede to the fact that public trials deter criminalism?
No.
Thank you so much. Have we had public trials in place?
Since you have already know that Okello had a public trial, you should actually know that.
Have we had public trials in place?
You have already had.
Okay. So do you think public trials deter criminalism? The fact that we've had
As explained. Do you think public trials deter criminalism?
yes. Thank you so much. Account for bribery that happens undercover, not in public.
That's why we're putting public trials to stop the bribery.
Account now, if a judge is in their house and they are found there, account for the bribery that happens
In
there.
public trials, we don't see bribery.
Do you understand that we don't have private trials in the entire parameter?
That's why we're creating public
So account for,
listen,
account for bribery undercover.
Can I have the last speech from
Okay. The resolution clearly states this also causes the rise of public trials, right? First of all, we think things like private trials are out of context in today's debate, because we think the person that is today's debate is the team that is able to show us the feasibility of the rise versus public trials. So unless OB is able to show the rise is able to solve
the problems in status, then they don't stand to win today's debate. Unless OB is able to show us how they solve the problem of bribery with the rise, they don't win today's debate. And able to show us how deterrence is so, or how deterrence is most effective with the right, they still don't lose, they still win, they still lose today's debate, right? Moving on, we think there is a big problem in the idea of which kind of portion interpretation they bring about in today's debate. They claim that we are actually looking at things like private trials, right? We think that is clearly out of context and it has been stressed enough. What we say is that unless they are able to show us that public trials in and out of itself is unnecessary or is useless, then they still lose in today's debate. What we come tell you from the first speech, from the second speech, and the third speech is that they are already effective. They fail to come and clarify their burden which they have on today's debate. But also too, on the idea of the trial of Okello, right? Even when we take them at their best case and he was proved guilty, right? We think it doesn't change the fact that he has been demonized, right? Still, at the end of the day, he can't live in society because his name has been punished, right? Moving on, I think we need to clarify on which kind of innocence they bring in today's debate. Even when the person is claimed to be innocent, we still think it doesn't change the fact that people will still be looking at him as someone who has tried. That is the demonization. The person who feel out of place, they fail to understand that. Right? But also too, on the idea of bribery, right? We think bribery is less achieved. This is a symmetrical point, right? It means it's both on our sides of the house, so it shouldn't be judged in today's debate, right? But we think it is more on their side of the house, whereby millions of people are engaged in this kind of thing, and therefore the decision that is made is unfair. What that does to society is that they don't show us how the resident solves that kind of problem. But we think in our side of the house, where we only support public trials, we think the effect of the harm that is brought would be less on our side of the house, right? But also too on the idea of deterrence, right? We think this is also an asymmetrical point, but what happens on their side of the house is that the deterrence isn't effective, right? In that when people, or millions of people over social media see someone being tried, they are not going to care whether he's innocent or not. All they want to do, or all they want to see on social media, on TikTok, is that whether he is getting a punishment or not. And that is what happens when the rise is there. What happens when the other people oppose is that what happens is that when we have public trials in and out of itself, we are able to show you that the offenders, and all the people, all the stakeholders in today's debate are then so catered for in today's debate. But also three, we think that we beat them on both a principled level and a pragmatic level. On a principled level is that we are able to show them that they don't have the kind of fair judgment, because the judge is more likely to receive societal justification on his judgment. He's going to give either a long term or a shorter term than they would have thought. What happens with public trials is that we are unable to get this kind of effect, because the judge is more likely to give something because he won't fear that people are going to judge me on basing on the decision I made. That said, if someone didn't deserve that term, they are going to get something which is a higher term that they would have got in today's debate. I'm going to rest.
I begin my speech. From my first to the second speaker, we actually come here and clarify to these people that the audience and the public are not present as influencers of judgment. They are only present as defenders of accountability. So if they're actually present as defenders of accountability, how are they going to influence the judgment? And actually also verify to them that throughout the entire session, what we are looking at is completely driven by the constitution of Uganda. That is, it is completely driven by law. So how then do they come telling us, how then do they come convincing us that the people are going to actually influence this? In the first place, public trial is actually making sure, it's actually fighting for the cause of the constitution of Uganda, it's actually fighting the cause of justice, because in the first place, we want justice to be delivered. So there is no one that a judge or whoever is actually carrying out this process is going to data from the law, because at the end of it all, what is justice delivered? And justice delivered can only be based on the law. Secondly, they have somebody stated their case on innocence of the suspect, but I actually pose a question to the first speaker, whereby I ask her, when they have actually been sentenced innocent, is it actually publicized? And she agreed that it is publicized. So then how is there a returnership of the suspect's name when innocence is actually being publicized as well? So they actually come here and decline the rise of public trials, but they do not actually tell us how they're going to make sure that justice is delivered in a country like this, whereby they are having a high level of injustice in the current judiciary system. So that's why actually we would like them to come here and be held accountable and tell us how they're going to actually make sure that injustice level has increased, is increasing without the public trials. Well, they actually also agree that they are actually also effective for public trial, and they say they are effective. So my question to them is, if it is actually effective, why not promote it
thousands and thousands of murder cases lying there. So why not actually promote the public prayers to make sure that even those that are not in position of justice are receiving justice? Secondly, they actually also realize by coming here and agreeing that the public trials are actually effective, it also means that they realize that there is much that public trials can do compared to the private ones. So they also come here and tell us, how are we going to make sure that the judge has received that prayer under the roof of their house is not going to deliver wrong judgment. But I assure you, yes, they will deliver, they will get the